Good afternoon, all. I welcome you all to the 1 hour webinar on 5 leadership mindsets to develop during uncertainty. It's good to have you all here. Let's begin with understanding the capabilities of Strengthscape as an organization. We are an organizational development and transformation company headquartered in Bangalore, India. We help organizations create mechanisms for development, motivation, commitment, and creativity that enables employees to give their best every day. To bring the best onto your table, we have partnered with Wiley for everything DISC products, Central Test for psychometric assessments, and Skillsoft for their off-the-shelf e-learning content. Our offerings includes HR certifications, competency mapping, technical training, psychometric assessments, behavioral training, digital learning, OD consulting, team building, image consultancy, executive coaching, and many more. Our facilitator for the webinar is Ian Kishander, who is a senior consultant training services at Strengthscape. And I, Pragya Kulsresht, am the business analyst at Strengthscape and will be addressing your queries through chat. Now, diving right onto today's webinar, I would request Ian to take the webinar forward. Ian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pragya, for that introduction. I'm just going to increase my volume a little bit. Just want to check one more time if everyone can hear the sound of my voice and you can see the slide deck. If you could just reply on the chat by saying yes, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Udayan. Thank you, Sam. Welcome to the webinar today. Leadership mindsets to develop during uncertainty. And today we want to talk about 5 leadership mindsets that we can develop during uncertainty. It's really interesting in the times that we are in, and collectively there's so much for each one of us to learn. Thank you for being part of this, and I hope you take away something strong in terms of your leadership skills and the mindset, especially from this webinar. All right, so today what we want to talk about, the 5 mindsets. We want to understand, really when we talk about crisis and uncertainty, what does effective leadership really look like? Leadership and crisis have always had a close yet complex relationship. Leaders have an opportunity to stand out when it comes to an uncertain time. It's a well-known fact that the political leaders, as an example, their approval ratings improve during times of crisis. You and I know how much we look up to our Prime Minister for his leadership. Despite the unprecedented and difficult decisions that these leaders have to make, approval ratings have certainly climbed the board if we do research based on that. The legacies of many modern history of leaders, for example, like Winston Churchill and Emmeline Pankhurst, have in a way shaped their responses based on certain challenging situations. And we look to leaders for reassurance and guidance during a crisis. But the challenge for leaders is twofold. It's not only to make the right decisions in uncertain times, but to set a positive example in these times as well. But what does effective leadership in crisis or uncertainty look like? It's really important to take control of the situation, or to share responsibility with others. Is that the question at hand? Or should you be realistic about the situation? Or the third question could be that should you be decisive or take the time to assess your options at hand? All of that is in your responsibility as a leader, and every crisis is different and requires a tailored response. But there are behaviors and mindsets that can really help you in this situation. So demonstrating the fundamentals of good leadership is of prime importance, and that's one of the mindsets we've got to build. Today we'll talk about that. Emotional intelligence in these crises, so listening to people, demonstrating the empathy. How do you communicate effectively with your team so that you establish that influence to be able to make the right decisions? Being agile in leadership in these uncertain times is so important. You can't go in with a rigid fixed mind. You've got to move. The situation is not going to give you a chance to be able to be rigid. You've got to be agile. You've got to think on your feet, and that's so important for us. Also managing ourselves. Managing ourselves first before we can manage somebody else. So, and there are certain qualities that we've got to build in order to thrive in these uncertain times. And all of that begins with the way we think as leaders. And so in this webinar, we'll look at the role of leadership in a crisis of uncertainty and how leaders can develop these skills and the mindset to handle uncertainty in a positive way, at the same time to be able to help others to do so as well, right? And that's what we've got as lined up for today's webinar. But before that, I want to start with understanding your preference. And if you were to make a choice out of these 4 options, what are the leadership challenges you face? Pick one of these. I'm going to launch a poll here for you. Choose one of the options, one of the most destructive challenges that you face as a leader. That would give us an insight as to see how we as a group on today's webinar really think. So there we go. The poll is launched. So if you would be, if I can invite you to accept that and make your choice. Okay, thank you so much for the participation. All right, just going to hold on there for a little while longer. I've got about 75% of you taking that poll. I do know some of you just joined us, so welcome. And so we're looking at what are the leadership challenges you personally face during uncertainty. I'm just holding on for a few more seconds. Hopefully everybody's joined in from your laptop, because sometimes you may not see it on the mobile phone. But no, nevertheless, I do see a lot of good participation. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to end that polling there. And then it's interesting to see some of these results. I'm going to share it with you as well. So I have about the highest number is to putting plans into action. 38% of us agree on that. Following through on plans is really challenging, especially when the environment around you is conducive for smooth changes. So experience shows up to 90% of strategic plans never achieve execution. And if you look at projects, there's about 80 to 85% of IT projects that really fail because of not being able to put plans into action. So yeah, that's a high challenge for leaders per se, forgetting about the project aspect. But as leaders, it can be challenging. Confidence during setbacks. Many leaders are in that position. Some of us are not prepared. Even world leaders are not prepared for these challenging times. Yes, absolutely. There are so many factors involved. Now, these are just 4 of the challenges that we really face. There are much more, as you would know. Asking for feedback is a challenge in many cases. Sometimes, it's important for leaders to know how the teams are doing and how you can modify your leadership style according to the requirement of the situation. And that would be really situational leadership. Maintaining focus on the future, that can be a challenge. When people are going through challenging times, most of the time we are focused on ourselves and the immediate condition that we are in, rather than focusing on the future. So but the reality is, as a leader, although this might be challenging for you, it's important that you be able to guide yourself, gather your thinking and your mindset, and drive your team to that success. Right? And so these are real challenges, and there are many more. Let me stop sharing those results for you so we can get on with what we want to talk about. But importantly, it's you, situation, that should take control. Leadership challenges always involve changing situations. However, you are the common factor between all of these challenges, and your ability to lead yourself is your greatest ability. I always say that you could be the only barrier to your own success. And so that's important when we talk about the situations that we are in, especially uncertainty. Situations come and go, but as a leader, you're always there. So you got to take up the baton and run that race, pressing on to the finish. So the fundamentals of good leadership is the first mindset that I want to really talk about today. The fundamentals of effective leadership are fairly constant when it comes to a lot of concepts about leadership. Good leadership is whether you're in or not, you should be demonstrating good leadership, because that's an important aspect. To understand the role of leadership in crisis is really important, as a role of leadership in general. The author and speaker Jeff Grout talks about this in his book, What Do Leaders Really Do? And there are core responsibilities that we've got to keep in mind, and that's relevant not just in leadership, but in normal life as well. One of it is to provide direction. The principal role of a leader is to be the compass, to chart the course, and to order, and in the order that people would love to follow. Right? A leader is the basic responsibility for a leader is to decide what the business should be doing. Even if you open up the decisions to people, at the end of it, there's a final decision that you've got to take, and you can take that as being influenced from the team, but making that decision, whatever the decision is just the start of being able to lead your teams effectively. And the Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos points out that there is no point in setting a direction if no one's following you. And that's true for so many leadership roles that are out there in different industries and professions. Providing direction is really about making decisions and making sure that everyone understands those decisions. And that's really at every level of the organization, from the executives to the graduates who are coming into the organization. It's important that everyone understands what the organization goals are and how their individual roles are contributing. And that's the line of sight that leadership should determine, right? That's something that's important. So when we talk about providing direction in a crisis, communication is very important, more important than in usual situations. Making sure that everyone understands the situation, the consequences, maybe not all of the consequences, but and how we are responding to the situation and why we are making those decisions. That clarity of communication is important. You should also provide and give people an opportunity to get information and ask more about the direction that's being led. The second thing in terms of good fundamentals of leadership is for us to create a sense of unity, right? So if you've got that insider feeling, you're feeling personally make a difference, then well, it's a great leadership quality, and it's something that we've got to grow in our minds, and nurture it and allow that to be able to bear fruit, right? Absolutely. Thank you for those comments that are coming up. Keep them coming. Bringing people together when it comes to a sense of unity and making them feel united is one of the important aspects of leadership. It's probably also something that's nice to have, but it's vitally important as well, right? Especially in these times. So we have a lot of strong collective instincts, just like, I'm not going to compare us to it, but just like a herd of animals with strong collective instincts, we have those gut feelings. We have that deep down inside, and we've got to go with those instincts to create a sense of unity. Leaders can make us feel that we are part of something that's larger. We get the big picture, even though it may not be explained in detail all the time. We understand where we are going and how we are going to do it when we have great leadership. So a great way to do this is to give people that autonomy and empower them for that insider feeling, so that they bring. So, somebody once said, great leaders make everyone feel like they are part of the inside circle. Creating a sense of unity in a crisis, we have to understand that we are all in this situation together, and it's a powerful message for leaders to share in crisis. Commending people, empathizing with people, commending people so that they go above and beyond a set positive example. And as a leader, it's important that we demonstrate that behavior as well. The third element would be build relationships as a fundamental of good leadership. Investing time in finding out about people and their life will tell you a lot about people. The famous English quote saying goes, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. When you spend time with people, when you get to know people, your team members closer, and see what they spend time doing, you will get to know more about them as individuals. And that's building rapport, which is an essential part of leadership. I don't think there are leaders who can lead without building proper relationships. This is going to deepen relationships by investing time in people and understanding how we get the best around you. And I think many of us who are coaches in today's webinar will agree with the fact that you really need to build. Rapport building is the most important element in coaching people to success. And so likewise in leadership as well, right? And so that's so important for us. So building relationships. Crises create a lot of pressure in our personal and our professional lives, more so today in our professional lives. But taking time to ask people how they are, how are they doing, taking an honest interest in their well-being is going to help all of us get past this phase. Right. I'm going to move on to the fourth element, which is to communicate effectively. If you want people to follow, we need to communicate effectively, in regularity, maybe, as more often as we used to do it. It's the small elements that matter most to people. And, you've got the big talk, you've got little talk, you've got all kinds of different areas in which you can communicate with people. So whether it is a water cooler conversation or a wherever you decide, or a Zoom interaction, take time to communicate to people. It's that interpersonal dialogue every day that goes on, which impacts the quality of communication and brings a positive element into it. Crises are moments for high stress, but it's important to communicate in a way that's calm, you keeping your level head as a leader and as appropriate for the situation, and help the staff not to lose their cool. And they may feel that by observing you and mirroring you, they're going to also build that sort of mindset to managing the situation. And lastly, for fundamentals of good leadership, asking questions is so important. It's vital to I've really understood the power of asking the right. People have solutions that are embedded inside them, and getting them. So questions like, what are the good things that we do that we must keep doing, for example, at this time? Or what are the bad things or the not so good things we must stop doing as a team? What things can we do occasionally or we should do consistently? And what is it that we should start doing? So in that sense, providing direction, getting the unity of people, building the relationships with individuals, communicating effectively as a leader, and asking the right questions is important for the fundamentals of good leadership. Just going to flick over and see if there are any comments to build on this here. Thank you very much. Okay, absolutely. Big, real relationships that's authentic, based on trust. I'm going to talk a little bit about trust as we go ahead. So yeah, we build on that. So emotional intelligence, we spoke about empathy, we spoke about, building rapport, and how can, when in a crisis or an uncertain period, emotional intelligence serves and can be a stimulator for how we can respond to crisis, right? Many of us have knowledge of the neuro-limbic system and how we respond in the flight or fight mode when it comes to certain crisis situations. But that's not tapping onto the 80% of our creative brains, the neocortex. So first of all, it's important for us to have an element of self-awareness, and that's really recognizing and managing your own emotions that will help you reduce stress on yourself as well as your team. So one of it is being more self-aware. Who am I? What am I capable of? What's my what am I good at doing? How can I navigate for my team? Secondly is self-regulation, taking time to assess all of your options. Departments, your options, assessing your options and the available information before making hasty decisions. Right. Thirdly would be to build an element of motivation, building that element of motivation, maintaining that positive energy. It starts with you. If you're driving energy, you will see energy. If you're driving, a stressed environment, it's going to demonstrate the stressed environment for you. So maintaining positive energy with a positive example for people to follow you. Empathizing with people, taking the time to think of others. You will endure them. In other words, will draw them to you and make sure that your behavior is appropriate to how people are feeling. That gives you a sense of how the team is doing as well. And lastly, social skills. Crisis can put vital relationships under strain. It's not just in our professional environment. I've seen so many relationships, personal relationships that are under strain, and managing relationships requires a lot of skill and tact. And so be more emotionally intelligent when we're dealing with people. And that's so important for us as a fundamental of proper relationships and leadership skills. So moving on, Evan Leybourne illustrates to us, in terms of effective leaders, they need to learn quickly that they can't do everything. A good leader is one who elevates the people around them. So as a leader, really, we may not have all the answers. We may not have all the solutions at hand. But the point is, you adapt to situations, you adapt to people, and a good leader is one who elevates people around them. Very rightly said. As our world is in a way turning upside down, or has turned upside down with the pandemic, most companies are reacting in some form or the other. And these times of uncertainty, business agility is so important. The way you manage change, the way you respond to activity, the way you respond to change, communication with people. The difference really is how agile is the organization, and that organization agility depends on the leadership styles that leaders are using. So in these uncertain markets and traditional organizations, how do they do it if they've been doing it a particular way, right? So organizations, as you and I know, have been going through big transformations, and many of them have shown a lot of benefits in changing and turning around faster. All of that depends on how how agile the leadership team and the organization. So as a leader, you need to model behavior exemplifying your own agile mindset. So from agility, I'm bringing it to you as an individual leader, and the results in many researches and reports that I've been reading up, indicate that leaders have not always demonstrated agile leadership skills or buy-in or support for an agile transformation, but leadership is a key success factor in any enterprise transfer or agile transformation. And so what do we need to do to be a more agile leader and drive teams forward? And why is it key to the success, right? So as we saw in the previous quote, by the Business Agile Institute, that was a quote by Evan Leyburn. So look beyond the buzzwords, and what we need to do is focus on certain concepts which are associated with Agile. What is important is not what it's called, because when we talk about agility, we relate it really to and certain elements there around that. But agility is we're looking at the characteristics of being agile. Leaders must be able to delegate outcomes, inspire people, and give them the space to do a great job. So allowing them, stepping back can be a challenge, which we didn't address early in this session, but it can be a challenge for leaders to step back and allow people to take the step forward. So a few things, 4 elements talking about why leadership agility is the key in these times. One is your leadership style, right? So these attributes of empowering others, giving them autonomy, and involving them in decision-making processes. Now, we understand that there are certain decisions that are better not opened up to the entire organization, because it could have adverse effects on individuals and their productivity. But you take that decision as a leader in your style. But it's important as much as possible to be transparent and involve people in the decision-making process as a participative approach. And that's universal of all styles of leadership that are taught in many agility classes. There's no one size that fits all, as we know it, even when it comes to a specific leadership style. But understanding and adopting an agile mindset forms that basis for strong leadership. Secondly is, as a leader, you need to work on the authenticity. Every leader has a unique personality. Every individual has one, and it's probably met with more success when demonstrating their own authentic style than when trying to follow a prescribed set of guidelines. Some leaders. Some leaders, in a way, need to be prompted because of certain other experiences that they bring, and maybe their knowledge of the individuals in their teams or businesses may not be as good as what is expected in that time. A strong leader recognizes that there is always room for growth, and will work to understand what parts of their own leadership style are working well for them, what's not working, and what could change. And being authentic in that sense is going to give you more room to be agile in uncertain times. Thirdly, agility through the system. We've got to not just focus on ourselves, but consider the entire environment, the ecology of the entire environment around you. So it's great that I might have a positive mindset and an agile leadership style in uncertain times, but agility throughout the organization, especially when you follow a traditional leadership model in certain organizations. So it differs. So leaders, when looking at an agility through the system, they reap the benefits of recognition for success and take the blame for failure. So there's sometimes your reputation and careers, hopefully not careers, but reputation sometimes is at stake. But in talking about considering the entire system, if leaders at the top hold managers accountable, then those managers will probably have a difficult time practicing an agile style of leadership. Practicing agility only within a particular domain or an area of leadership is not as effective as practicing agility throughout the organization. And that really it applies to what I'm referring to. You won't create complete success unless the entire system changes, and unless it's driven as a line of sight from the executives, and it goes down to the frontline employee. So here is where education can be the answer. Now, it's not just training that I'm referring to. What I'm referring to, executive coaching, building executives, because they will be the heads that lead the organization. They will direct the path of the employees. And so agility through the system is of vital importance. And developing the right mindset. One of the most agile concepts is that there is no right or wrong. Everything depends on context, right? So when you're dealing with uncertainty and change, there is no leadership book that you can refer to that will tell you what to do in which situation. So developing the right mindset is what's going to guide us to act in accordance with those set of values, principles that we believe in for our own individual organizations, whether we are entrepreneurs or working as part of a larger organization. Knowing those values, knowing those principles, adapting that in our own behaviors and demonstrating that as examples. Right. Agile values and principles really will encourage leaders to use collaboration and empower others to grow and share in decisions and planning areas for the team and on the whole. When we have agile leaders, they will look at failures as opportunities to learn and foster trust and a psychologically safe environment for the organization. So these are reasons and areas as to how important being agile, not as just a culture in the organization, but also our individual mindsets as leaders to be able to drive through the organization. In terms of when we talk about driving the right mindset, it's about thinking in a positive way, knowing what what the situation holds for you, what are the in terms of when you're dealing with uncertainty, there's no real point of reference that you can take, but you've got to adapt, you've got to be proactive, you've got to be first of all, to be able to be proactive, you've got to think in a positive way. And for that to happen, you being authentic with yourself. For example, what are my really what are my strong areas, what are my talents that I have, what are some of my weaker areas? Do I depend on somebody else within my team who has a stronger area, being authentic and being aware of your own self is what's going to help you to develop the right mindset. So it really starts with being authentic with yourself, right? I hope that answers the question there as well. So moving on to talking about what is it that we can do when we talk about leading through uncertain times. Most of the leaders, well, this is the situation that we are in right now, leading during uncertain times. You know, what do we do now? Well, how do we adapt to it? How do we work? How do I adapt to the situation? The most able leaders inspire people's trust and communicate with empathy and clear facts. So, you know, the current situation has really forced senior managers to change their routines and flex to new leadership styles and new leadership muscles. And many have risen to the challenge, but also it's becoming more clear that you know, there will be no quick return to the normal. It's a lot of organizations, for an example, are saying, although have returned to normal in some months or so on, a lot of organizations will continue to work virtually. They will operate virtually because they find certain benefits. So there's no real quick return to the normal times as we had pre-pandemic. Executive teams face a prolonged period of uncertainty that's you know, going to require different styles of leadership. We can see now in terms of even virtual programs and how we're operating virtually, it's changing. It was all hunky-dory to be able to focus and have a virtual training program, but things are changing as well. We're looking for going back to you know, in-person interactions. We are looking at this situation changing as fast as possible. So in times of adversity, effective leaders are the ones who are going to stand out for their empathy, transparency, and humility. I'm just going to take an example of the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. When the pandemic really hit, and people were asking questions, looking at leadership, you know, his response in one of the statements was, "I wish I could promise New Yorkers this will be over soon." He said, "I can't, here's what I can promise. I will continue to give you the facts and will make decisions based on science and data." So going back again, you know, there may not be a leadership reference point or a book that can guide us in times, but adapting to it and being able to give people the confidence is so important. Many businesses, just like that example, many businesses have taken the similar approach in communicating with workers. And amid this uncertainty and accelerating change, it's important that the challenge really is run the business effectively, which means get the productivity in place while positioning it for new opportunities. And you know, as society in itself is grappling with so many changes, you know, the stakeholders and leaders are the ones defining the company's success. So a few things that can help us is, you know, customers who are grateful that the business solves important problems for them. Building on that is something that's important. So leaders have an opportunity now to go back to customers, go back to you know, people who have been long-term supports for your business and for the organization. Grateful customers are going to help you go through this uncertain time. Secondly, employees feel more secure. We've seen in many researches, I've spoken about this even in some of the other webinars, employees who feel secure and you know, satisfied are the ones who stay longer. And today, every time we conduct an interview, we talk to somebody who is who is looking for an opening, especially in these times, one of the main things they're looking for is stability. So when they feel secure, they are looking to stay longer. So employees who feel secure and inspired really learn, grow, and help the business achieve its purpose. And that's what leaders should be looking for as well. Thirdly, stakeholders who are enduring will value the success over short-lived profits, right? So we know in these times we may not be getting the right and the sufficient amount of revenues that we are looking for, or the profits, but enduring through this time, when stakeholders as leaders are enduring through this time, the short-lived profits will be nothing compared to what we have for the future. And lastly here, communities are looking for businesses to be successful and to continue to service, and communities that admire the contributions of the business to their welfare. This is something that's also going to boost the way we do our jobs, the way we lead our teams, the way we focus on people, right? So how do we do that? What now? What else? We have this. Is great to talk about them, but what else can we think about? During times of uncertainty, the pandemic has sort of pushed executives to strengthen their leadership abilities as individuals with teams, and in the in the framework of organizations. This is something that we've been talking about in some of my personal circles as well. Our children's children really will most probably learn about the situation that you and I are going through, the uncertainty that you and I are going through today. Our children's children will most probably learn about this time in their studies in the future, probably. The opportunity here is to recognize these changes and make the most of them in the months ahead. So senior executives can really start with a few questions. One of it is, how have I personally changed? How have I changed during this time? Secondly is, how have my team interactions changed? Right? And thirdly is, how am I engaging my organization? So organization differently than before. It can't be the same. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same kind of results. So if you are struggling with the changes, then you've got to change the way we do it. So the most adept leaders know themselves well. Right? I refer back to being more self-aware. So how have I changed, personally changed? The leaders are, when they're more conscious of their state of mind and the factors influencing their behavior, they will see changes. That will drive their behaviors. And they also recognize that in these turbulent times, an open mindset and willingness to learn from experience becomes an asset. And and that becomes the hallmark of behaviors, learning and adapting in the right mindset. Let's explore these areas a little more in terms of talking about the uncertain times. So what are things that we can do? How can we lead effectively? A few things that can help us by managing, trusting and enabling others. Researchers, many of them showcase that leaders who trust and empower their teams unleash powerful potential. So just a few statistics to give you, comparing with employees that have a low trust in certain organizations. Those that work at a high trust company or organization report about 74% less stress. Job, 106% more energy in the way they do their job. 50% of them are higher in productivity, and they stay away from the organization less. Right? engagement becomes more, 76% to be factual in the percentage, and 29% more satisfaction with their personal lives as well. And so your burnout rate would also drop in many areas. So managing people by enabling them, giving them that autonomy makes a big difference. Secondly is listening to people. Active listening is a common topic that's spoken about, but a very powerful one. Asking questions and listening not only about the business, but also about how people are doing. Connecting and creating inclusive experiences. People have got to feel a sense of belonging. They are looking to feel that they are part of a bigger group, a mission, and they are valuable in the purpose that the organization is going to. And that's where a leader can play a key role in guiding them. Willingness to show vulnerability. A lot of leaders at this juncture are, depending on the level of self-awareness that they have about themselves, the new world is less certain for all of us. And as a leader, you won't have all the answers. So, making believe that you do have all the answers would not get you the right kind of outcomes you're looking for. It's more credible to acknowledge to your team members and people in your organization that you don't have a crystal ball to refer to, but you've got the potential to people, and you will guide them to the best of your ability. And fourthly, acting on behalf of the greater good. When people see that, it's a real test of your sense of purpose as a leader. The current situation has prompted many capable leaders to reassess their own purpose and that of their organizations. What makes a firm more distinctive for its customers, employees, and society is something that you've got to ask. What can we do differently? What does it mean to be a good corporate citizen? So executives have started to take a fresh and honest look at the company's mission. Today, we are more connected with the values of our organizations as compared to before, right? And reflecting on the impact that of society that we have. So that's really in terms of how have my interactions changed. Let's look at the next question. How have my team interactions changed? So when we talk about that area, we spoke about trust and you being a trusted advisor as a leader. People will follow you and go after what you're saying and make sense of it when they feel the fact of trust. So teams that trust their leaders outperform. That's the reality of it. And the qualities that inspire trust are credibility, reliability, and intimacy. While a lot of leaders struggle in particular with intimacy, it's important. If you take the evidence of the reports on trust done by Trusted Advisor Associates, they talk about 18% of people feel intimacy is a core strength, though it's the important most factor in building trust. So today we have our working from home environment that has provided a unique window into our teams' lives, where trust is a factor. When your leader, trusts and says, "Okay, my people are doing the job that they say that they are expected to do." Today we see trust is an important factor again when we talk about. We see our co-workers' kids, running around them on an internal team meeting, their pets, their kid, the backgrounds. You make certain, you get certain amount of understanding when we come on to video conferences, and so have an opportunity to build more relationships, get to know each other a little better, and help in becoming more productive. But at the end of the day, as human beings, we are all connected, and you can see so many similarities with that, the element of trust. So how can there are ways in which we can foster stronger relationships, and build more in this, building on elements of trust and credibility. So it's a combination of that. And when leaders focus not just on their self-interest or self-orientation, but are focused more with people, then it builds the environment and helps you lead in an easier manner through uncertain times. Right. Here's an example of a global restaurant, preparing to implement some transformations. They planned a session where people are working from home, and it's a virtual program. So there, what they did was to minimize they split it over a couple of days, so the session was more impactful. There was an emphasis of employee participation, limiting the amount of one-way dialogue. So there was a lot of participation from both sides, ensuring small group discussions and exercises that resulted for them in a very powerful way. And there was feedback from one of the participants that said, the learning was awesome and really valuable tools that were shared, and they felt more connected with their leaders to better lead themselves, and and to help navigate through the success of the company. And that's the benefit in terms of building the right kind of relationships in these uncertain times. Lastly, how am I engaging my organization differently? What are things that we are doing, right? It's really to engage the organizations better than before. There's a science behind communicating during the time of stress, and it's important. Sometimes we can't have all of the information to address it, but our subconscious minds are extremely powerful. The mental noise reduces the ability to process information about 80%. And so we've got to create that environment of confidence with people, and building those trusting relationships really make that strong. People's attention span shrink to just about 12 minutes when they're under stress, right? So we've got to make that captivating and interesting to capture the moment as we have it. They want to know that you care before they care what you know. So as a leader, working with your people and getting to know them as individuals will make a big difference as to how much you demonstrate whether you really care for them. So as a result, it's important to keep certain messages on communication short, lead with empathy, and communicate via trusted elements. Right. So if we're going forward, it's going to be important for us to address the more fundamental need for change and give managers, team members, workers confidence about the future. And as we know, strong leaders are able to inspire and stimulate that hope. So a couple of things that can help you with engaging with the organizations and thriving through uncertainty. One is the convening power and coalition building. The problems are big for each individual, not just you. You're one of many as a leader in this, and it's your responsibility to lead. So a leader is somebody who's going to influence and create that ability to convene people, and has that power in their hand to build the coalition. Looking at the views, not just the short-term views, the long-term views, and weighing all of what you have at hand, making those options the most realistic for the benefit of yourself and the team, and enabling teams to work faster to match the current pace of change. So the nature of change is that it shortens the time horizon. So the pace and energy of innovation must match the pace of change as well. So enabling them is going to help you to be able to build it. Right. So yeah, with that sense, the steps in terms of recovering from a crisis, what can we do? Just as guidelines, there's much more we can refer to, but learn from the past and then refocus as a leader for yourself and for your team. Understand your new context and adapt to it. This is not only taught in today's workplace, it's also taught in many of the combat teams, the armies. Understand your new context and adapt to it. Be agile, invest in the future. This is a time that we can invest in people and in the future. And so that's really what we want to do. So with that said, I just want to leave you with a quote that's up on the screen. Look at the chat and see what has come up there. Thank you so much for the comments. Right. Just want to pause as well and check if there are any specific questions as to what we've spoken about that you want to put up on the chat. So thank you so much for sharing. Okay, I'm going to, if there are no questions, I'm going to hand it back to my colleague, Pragya, who will just share a little bit of information, and then we close it out. We've got a couple of minutes on the timer. Thank you very much for being a great audience. Pragya, over to you.
Sure. Thanks for this insightful webinar, and thank you for being a participative audience. So I just wanted to let you know about our upcoming webinars and certifications that we are having.
Pragya, I think sorry, Pragya, I think your voice is breaking a little bit. Let me just quickly take everybody through these to save you from that. So we do have a few upcoming webinars in the month of October that's going to help you. We're looking at certain HR practices that drive results, which many of us come from the HR background. Adopting technology to fast track competency mapping. We're looking at, what are the competencies that are required in today's times and age. Learning from 2020, a changing landscape for L&D. Things are changing everywhere, every part of the organization, including the L&D. So, and diversity in the remote workplace. So those are some of our upcoming webinars. Do register. We'd love to have you back there. Also, we do have certifications. Investing for the future is something we were talking about. So these are some of the upcoming certifications that we have that are coming your way. If you find the interest, or pass the word around, so people who would like to invest in themselves will have the opportunity to do so. If anybody needs to get in touch with Strengthscape, please do connect with us on these platforms. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for being part of this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it, and it's always a pleasure to facilitate for you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.